The people we have around us can make or break us. The people in our community, not physical community, not necessarily where we live or where we reside, but the people in our circle can either help us to go into our next level to fulfill that vision that God has for our life, the purpose, you know, to help us really reach those goals that we've been setting. Or those same people can leave us in a state of fear and panic and will have us stuck and wandering around in the wilderness for so many reasons. It took me a while to record this episode. And even now that I'm starting to record it, I've started and stopped a couple of times, just disclaimer, but I'm gonna try to get through it this time. Just because this is a hard conversation for me to have. But I think it's necessary. If there is anything that you've ever wanted to do in life, you can't do it alone. You need a specific set of people around you to walk that thing out. I believe that God places us in the lives of people, and I believe God places people in our lives depending on the season that we're going through. I believe wholeheartedly the quote that says everybody that came with you can go with you. I believe that. I believe in quality over quantity. I don't need a lot of people around me. I need the right people around me. I believe that wisdom, counsel, um, actual character traits that you need, the accountability. I feel like that's rare air. It's only there are unique people equipped to be that in your life. And I'm not talking about just like friends. I'm talking about the people in your circle, your family, your church family, your the friendships that have endured the test of time. I'm talking about those people. They have been uniquely created to be a part of this story, this chapter of your life. I think it was hard for me to record this episode because um as I have gone through different seasons of my life at this point, I'm 43, so I've lived long enough to realize the real from the fake, the authentic from the inauthentic, the friends that were there for a season, the friends that, you thought would be there for a while, but they turned out to be the ones who, you know, wanted you to fail. It sounds harsh, but it's very true. I realized very quickly, not just in friendships, but this thing that God was having me to do, I had to be very intentional and strategic about who I shared whatever it is I was working on, who I shared those things with. Because the very individuals that we are open and vulnerable with sometimes might use that vulnerability against us, but not always. Um, when I first moved back to Louisiana, it wasn't necessarily something that I wanted to do. I knew it was God leading me back here because I was comfortable in Texas. I could have, I was laid off, but I could have, stayed where I was and gotten another job and all the things. But I literally felt like this is where I was supposed to be. And almost immediately, it wasn't the first weekend that I was there, but the second weekend, I remember running into an elder. And I was at a baseball game of all places, and she had heard that I'd come back. And I don't know if she asked me or if I volunteered and said, God told me this, this is, and I probably volunteered it to her and said, this is where I'm supposed to be. God wanted me to move back. I don't know all the details yet. I probably volunteered it, but I would never forget what she said. She looked at me and said, "Are you sure God told you that?" And walked away. And at that point, I realized, you know what? I'm gonna have to walk this thing out on my own. I cannot wait for people to get in line with the vision that God has given me. They may never see it. They may never see it. And then there was this guy. I'm only telling these stories to help someone who's listening because I feel like there are people that have been following, right? This might be your first time listening to the podcast. You may have been here since the very first episode, but you are sitting on something and you are afraid to walk that thing out because there have been people that have been speaking negatively over you, and you are afraid. You're paralyzed in fear for fear of what people might say, these hypothetical people might say if you actually, you know, take one step forward and live that thing out. Anyway, I'll tell you about another situation and then I'll try to move on and get out of here because I don't want this to be a long episode. But there was a guy in my local community. I had just written my book, The Fierce Female's Guide to College Life and Beyond. I thought I had a copy of it next to me, but I don't. Anyway, I just written the book, and so I was soliciting help from people that I knew in the community just to get the word out so that I could get in front of audiences where there were students, either high school students or freshmen in college. So I solicited help from, people at the local universities. I happen to be blessed to be from a community where we have, several campuses nearby. So I solicited help, and I remember hearing the feedback, and someone was like, who is this you trying to promote? They got this little book. Just imagine how I probably felt in that moment. I'm thinking back to um where I was, I wasn't working. I think I was still on unemployment, but I had written this book. I had put everything into it. I had gone to the library over the summer when everybody was just out chilling, kicking it, doing whatever. I was going to the library every single day, and I would stay there and I would write a chapter or edit a chapter or review a chapter. I was there in one of those little study rooms every single day. I taught myself how to go on to Amazon Kindle so that I could, publish it myself. I was out there learning and grinding. You hear me? And to go through all of that work and to come back to my hometown where I thought I would feel and embrace a hug to say, you know what, I know that you didn't necessarily you've had a rough go at it. I heard you lost your job and I see that, you wrote this book and I think it's great. Instead of being met with um positive, things, not to say that I wasn't met with it, but there was an overwhelming um um how can I put this? There was an overwhelming like, what's she doing? What is that? Almost kind of like who is this book for? And we don't always remember the positive things, right? We don't always remember those situations. So when I think back over that time, it was frustrating to be grinding, right? I would keep those books in the trunk of my car. I remember riding around at homecoming, not riding around, but carrying a backpack around at homecoming with my books in my backpack so that I could sell them to anybody who had, heard about it on Facebook, on Instagram or whatever, who heard, that I'd written the book, because that was my gas money for the week. That was how I was paying my bills for the week. So it made me realize those first couple of years when I was stepping out on faith and doing the thing that I always said I was going to do right because I had the time to do it, because I knew God was calling me to do it, to be met with in my hometown of feeling like, dang, ain't nobody checking for me like that. Even though, like I said, there were several situations where people definitely looked out for me, but the thing that stung the most was the people who didn't even know me, the people who felt like because I was from where I was from, then they wouldn't give me a chance. There's something about this a small town energy. And I don't want to harp on that too much, but I know there are a lot of people who may not be from where I'm from, but may be in situations that are similar. I want you to keep going, okay? Because it gets better, especially if it's something that God has given you. I want you to keep going because Jesus couldn't heal people in his hometown. They call him Mary's boy. So I say all that to say there is power in your community. I could have received that feedback. I could have received the feedback from that elder who I looked up to and said, you know what? Maybe God didn't tell me to move back. Maybe I just need to pack up and move back to Texas. Maybe I could have taken um that advice or that feedback from that guy from that place, I won't say where, who kind of brushed me off and said, now who is this person? Of course I'm not going to let her come speak to my students. I don't know her. I could have taken those times and said, you know what? Maybe I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Maybe I just need to give up. Maybe I don't need to go speak anywhere. Maybe I could have given up. Maybe I could have, the first time, the friendships that have been there for a long time seemed to get a little funny, when the book came out and it seemed like, okay, wait a minute now. I know you wrote this book, but you're getting too big for your britches, right? We say it in the country. When you have people close to you and they realize, wait a minute, you're getting way too much more attention than I thought you would. I'm not okay with that. I think that we have to be very intentional about who we have around us. I think we have to embrace the people who hold us accountable, but who also speak our names in rooms that we will never see. I think we have to embrace the situations where people make room for you. There have been people who have, called on me and said, hey, I thought about you. I knew you had this book. Can you come and speak to my class? Thinking about Miss Susan Wiley. Will you come speak to my class? Sure. Why not? Thank you. I love the opportunity. It's situations like that when people see beyond your circumstances and they see the vision that God has for you and they speak life over you. You need those people in your circle. I prefer quality over quantity. When you think about um, a lot of situations where people have been elevated to a certain level and, either locally or like, celebrities, and some type of scandal happened or something happened and maybe they lost their lives and you realize it was the people they had around them that were responsible for their demise. It was the people they had around them that was responsible for whatever went left. So as you are writing these goals, I'm going to bring it back around. As you are writing down these goals and you're writing these visions for your life and you're thinking about putting into action these things that you've been sitting on for a while, I want you to take a look around you. I want you to take out some scissors, figurative scissors, and I want you to start cutting away anything that's not growing. I spent a lot of time in the garden and I realized when I was in the garden this summer that as I pruned away the leaves of the morning glory vines, more leaves would grow and they would grow much faster. And not only that, blooms would come and then eventually seeds that I could start all over again next year. So do not be afraid to prune away what is no longer growing in your life. Just because you've been friends for decades doesn't mean these people are supposed to go with you. Just because they came with you, they're not supposed to go with you. This thing that God has called you to do, He called you, not them. So don't be afraid to let them go and be okay with it. I prayed this prayer and then I'm gonna let you go. I bet you're seeing why this episode was hard because I honestly wanted to come from a different perspective, but I just had to be honest about where I was right now. Um, I remember praying a prayer not too long ago, and I asked God to reveal the true character of the people around me. I'm not sure what made me pray that prayer, but I did. And I was not prepared for what was going to happen. I was not prepared for the hurt that I would feel from people that I thought were very close to me. I was not prepared for from all the stuff that would happen, but it also made me stronger and made me realize that um I have to move differently, that I have to pray about everything, every single thing and every single person around me. I have to pray about it. I can't be naive and think that uh everybody has my best interest because ultimately we're all humans. We're all living individual lives. carrying out individual things. So that's what I've learned. And I feel very passionately that whatever it is God has for you, whatever He has for me, He's going to bring the people into our lives that are going to help us see it through. And He's going to show us who needs to be removed. And we can't feel bad about it. We can't feel like, oh no, I want to hang on to this person because we've been friends for decades. But they are literally sucking the life out of you. They're talking about you behind your back. Every time you're around them, you feel like you can't even be yourself. You're afraid to talk about what it is you want to do because you know they're either going to try to take it and do it themselves, which what God has for you is for you. So don't be afraid if somebody tries to like steal your idea. If it's from God, you can see that thing through. But yeah, keep your eyes open and be mindful of the people around you, right? So as you prepare to write your to create your vision boards and to develop your vision book, whatever you decide, or write down your goals, or, if you're just saying, I'm going to do a New Year's resolution, whatever you decide, just know that you need to pray that God surround you with the people that are going to help you get there. Because I know there are people listening to this that have been paralyzed in fear, afraid to make the wrong move, afraid to say the wrong thing because they don't want to be talked about or seen a certain way from others, from people in their circle. They don't want to seem like they're a sellout or they're doing something different. Like God called you to be different, so be different, do that thing. The loneliest place or the loneliest people are the people who have the biggest visions. Jesus spent most of his time alone in prayer. He had these people, the disciples, but for the most part, he was by himself praying, even though he knew what was going to happen at the end, and even though he knew who was going to betray him, he knew he needed certain character traits around him. The people who were going to deliver him to the enemies, the people who were going to forsake him, and also the people who would continue to speak his word when he was gone. So I don't want you to feel you've gotten nothing from this. I think the one thing I want to leave you with is do the thing. Don't be afraid. Don't look to your left and look to your right and feel like, well, if I take this job or if I take this opportunity, that means I have to leave behind these people that have been with me all along. If I go on this journey, if I take this trip, that means I have to leave this person behind because they're not ready to travel. I say take the trip. hmm I say take the job. I say step into the opportunity. And then watch how God places people around you exactly when you need them. All right. Maybe I'll keep this episode. Maybe I won't. I feel like this is a therapy session for me. Um, I hope you got something from this. I hope you feel ready to take on the world. I hope you're also thinking about the people in your orbit that you need to cut away unapologetically. All right. Y'all have a good day. All right. I'll talk to y'all next time.